Dear readers, have you ever looked back and wondered how another month, another year, or even several years seem to pass so quickly? As children, summer holidays could feel almost endless. Birthdays seemed to take forever to arrive, and even one school year could feel like a very long period of time. Yet as we grow older, many of us begin to notice something different. Weeks seem to merge together, months pass quickly, and suddenly we find ourselves asking, where did the time go? The interesting thing is that time itself has not changed. A minute still contains 60 seconds. A day still has 24 hours. A year still contains approximately 365 days. What changes is our psychological experience of time. Research in psychology suggests that time perception is influenced by several factors, including attention, memory, emotion, novelty, routine, and the way our brain stores experiences. One important explanation involves novelty. When we are young, life contains many first experiences. Our first day at school, our first close friendship, our first examination, our first holiday that we clearly remember, our first job, our first salary, our first independent journey. Because these experiences are new, our brain pays more attention to them. They can create stronger and more distinctive memories. When we later look back on a period filled with many memorable experiences, that period can feel psychologically longer and richer. Adult life, however, can become more repetitive. We may wake up at the same time, follow the same routine, travel the same route, perform similar tasks, return home, eat, watch television, sleep, and repeat the same pattern again the next day. Routine is not necessarily negative. It gives us structure, stability, and efficiency. But when too many days are very similar, they can begin to blend together in memory. This may help explain why we sometimes reach the end of a month and wonder how it passed so quickly. Attention also plays an important role. Imagine waiting for an appointment while constantly looking at the clock. Every minute feels noticeable. Time seems to move slowly. Now imagine spending 2 hours doing something you genuinely enjoy. Perhaps you are learning something new, talking with someone interesting, traveling, creating something, reading, or working on a project that completely captures your attention. Suddenly you look at the clock and realize that 2 hours have passed. The clock moved at exactly the same speed in both situations. What changed was your attention. Emotion can also influence how we experience time. Fear, anxiety, boredom, and anticipation can sometimes make short periods feel very long. On the other hand, enjoyable experiences can seem to pass extremely quickly while they are happening. Yet something interesting can happen afterwards. A holiday may feel very fast while we are experiencing it, but when we look back several months later, it can feel like a rich and substantial part of our lives because it created so many memories. This reminds us that there is an important difference between how time feels while we are living through an experience and how long that period feels when we remember it later. Another popular explanation is that each year becomes a smaller proportion of our total life as we age. For a 5-year-old child, 1 year represents a very large percentage of everything they have experienced. For someone who is 50, 1 year represents a much smaller proportion of their life. This idea may help explain part of the feeling that years become shorter. Although psychology tells us that there is no single explanation for time perception, memory, attention, emotion, and lifestyle all contribute. Modern digital life may also influence our experience of time. Many of us move rapidly between messages, social media, emails, videos, notifications, news, and countless small tasks. We can be extremely busy throughout the day while creating very few meaningful memories of what actually occupied our time. Sometimes we reach the evening feeling exhausted and ask ourselves, what did I actually do today? Being busy and creating meaningful experiences are not always the same thing. So can we slow time down? We cannot slow chronological time, but perhaps we can make our experience of time richer. We can introduce small amounts of novelty into our lives. We can learn something new. We can take a different route. We can visit somewhere unfamiliar. We can start a creative project. We can meet new people. We can read about subjects we have never explored before. We can create traditions, take photographs, keep a journal, or celebrate meaningful achievements. These experiences create psychological landmarks. They help separate one period of our lives from another. Mindful attention can also help. Instead of always thinking about what comes next, we can sometimes pay greater attention to what is happening now. A conversation, a meal, a walk, music, nature, a new achievement, a moment with someone important to us. Life can pass quickly when we are constantly mentally moving towards the next task. Sometimes simply noticing the present moment gives that moment greater meaning. For me, this is one of the most valuable lessons from the psychology of time. We cannot stop another birthday from arriving. We cannot make a year contain more days, but we can decide how consciously we live those days. We can continue learning throughout life. We can create new experiences. We can appreciate important moments. We can build meaningful relationships and create memories that give our lives psychological depth. Perhaps the question should not be, how can I stop time from moving so quickly? Perhaps the better question is, how can I make the time I have more meaningful? Time is one of our most valuable resources because once it has passed, we cannot recover it. So the lesson is not to fear getting older or to fear time moving quickly. It is to avoid allowing life to pass completely on autopilot. We cannot control the clock, but we can influence how deeply we experience the journey. Thank you for your support. I hope you enjoy this blog, find the information valuable, and take something meaningful from what I am sharing with you. Dear readers, you can access the full article, including all supporting links, references, and further information directly through my blog, Lourdes Bonnici.